All right, and now we are at the official. What did I just put it here? That's nice. That is very nice. Let me get the paintbrush tool. See if this works. Don't want that color though, guys. Just fixing my eraser real quick. Oh no, I'm erasing the panel. So I need white. Okay, X. And we'll do eyedropper. Grab this color. Brush. There we go. There, much better, much better. All right. So now what we're going to do is look really closely at Blackbeard here. Oh, too close, too close. That's good enough. And see what we can find out. What a goofy ass introduction, by the way, for one of the most chaotic characters in the series. But we get him next to Luffy right away because this is Luffy's, I guess I would say, his main rival, even though I don't necessarily think that Luffy sees it that way. I think Luffy probably sees Shanks as his main rival. And I'd be curious to see how we can try to understand how Luffy feels about Blackbeard as well through all this. So, Luffy goes, "This cherry pie is so bad I could die." As a hater of cherry pie myself, or just cherry in general, I'm like, yes, Luffy, you are right. That shit is bad. Blackbeard says, and he's unnamed at this point, "This cherry pie is so good, I could die." So they're pretty much set up immediately as foils to each other, that they see something opposite. They both like eating, but what they like, they're on different planes. Oh, you hate cherry pie too? My wife is Blackbeard pilled. Let's get down. Let's get down. And now we get a little bit of a fuller look at Blackbeard. He's not wearing his kind of rings and stuff like later in the series and stuff. He gets all that's too big. Okay, how's this? Yeah, he's got no rings on his fingers. He's dressed very plainly. They're not really setting us up for thinking this guy's important at all. He's a slower eater than Luffy. That's a big deal, right? Let's fix this. Yeah. Let's see here. The first impression is bad, right? They don't like each other. They don't like each other at all. But they're very similar. They're drinking at the same time, eating at the same time, making the same poses. Understanding that Luffy's essentially the person that inherited the will of Joy Boy or Nika, and with the context now, given the most modern chapters, that there could be multiple Nikas in the past, we have to wonder how far back their differences go. Luffy says that drink was really good. Blackbeard says that drink was really bad. Just hammering in some more about him. But Blackbeard's missing some teeth. He's pretty old too, right? I think right now in the series he's 40 years old, making him the oldest emperor. A little bit older than Buggy and Shanks. I kind of wonder what Blackbeard's true goal is. Like, I get he wants to rule the world and all that, but I heavily anticipate more lore from him. Yeah, well, I mean, I think with Blackbeard, what we'll see too is that he's somebody that knows a lot, and that is what kind of gives him a lot of power, essentially, is he has more knowledge than other people. And, you know, he's got a degree of planning shit out really, really far into the future. And I definitely think his goal goes beyond being king of the world or whatever. I mean, essentially, how I think about it too is Luffy's goal is to become king of the pirates, to find the One Piece. But his dream is something that comes after that. Luffy's dream is something that is only possible once he has the power, the reputation, whatever, of being king of the pirates, of finding the One Piece. So I think Blackbeard is going to have a similar situation happen, that he wants to become king of the world so that he can make his dream like a reality or whatever, right? Luffy says, hey man, I want 50 packs of meat to go in. Blackbeard, that cheeky little bastard, says, I want 51 cherry pies to go. And then they keep amping it up a little bit more. 52 packs of meat, 53 pies, 54 packs of meat, 55 pies, etc. Get the next chapter up here, or the next appearance. All right. And finally, Luffy and Blackbeard are about to throw hands. Basically rearing back and doing the same move though, right? Let's see here. You can see that Blackbeard at least is like, hey, you and I are kind of the same. Are you a pirate? Blackbeard has a little bit of a level of excitement, I would say, in his eyes and face. Luffy, on the other hand, doesn't really care about any of that. Luffy cares about his goals. Yes, what's his bounty? 30 million. 30 million? You? And I think on a first reading, this has a little bit of an implied... what would I say? That he's like, you look weak. How could you have a bounty of 30 million? But we learn later when they run into each other during the Impel Down arc that he actually compliments Luffy on his hockey growing stronger. This being their last meeting, meaning that he's here when he's saying 30 million you, he's actually like, somebody with this hockey should have a higher bounty, right? Which is ironic since he has a bounty of 0. He is wanted by the world government as being somebody from the Whitebeard Pirates, but no bounty in particular. What do you think is up with Blackbeard's teeth missing differently all the time? Do you think it's like how Luffy and Brook can grow teeth back, or could it just be not a matter? Or could it just not matter because it's just like a feature? Well, there's a few things with his teeth. I've looked into this a little bit before, but part of this is going to be something that we do look into more here. His teeth change partially just because of like perspective and drawing, from what I've seen. And then sometimes I think it's a little bit of an incontinuity. But I would like to pay attention to moments when he's using his devil fruit, when he's being more powerful, all that kind of stuff. I want to pay attention to even small details like that, because there could be something there. I'm not going to say there couldn't. But from what I've seen is that it's just like inconsistent across the board, right? Either from a manner of perspective and drawing, or just like not keeping it consistent, right? I think ultimately when Oda is drawing, he doesn't pay too much attention to like scales and perspective and stuff, and ultimately he just wants the drawing to look good, look like how he wants it to feel. So if he's feeling like Blackbeard's mouth looks a little weird with where he's put the teeth, he might change it up a little bit and get rid of a tooth or add a tooth here or there. So from my mind, when I've looked into it, it's a little bit it's a little difficult to tell, is what I would say. 30 million, you, that's impossible, you're a liar. I'm not a liar, it's true. Yeah, and I definitely think Blackbeard is anything but normal. So if his teeth grew back and stuff, that'd make sense. But I'd be like, why did his teeth not grow back? Why is he missing teeth here, and why didn't it grow back a while back? Like, why do some teeth grow back and some don't? Oh, Blackbeard. He kind of was just like... He kind of knows the same lesson as Shanks, right? He does kind of remind me of Shanks. He knows when to not fight. He knows when to not escalate things. He knows when to he knows like who he is and where he stands in the world, and he's not going to waste his time with people like Bellamy, who shows up here and is like, I'm looking for a guy in a straw hat. Ugh. And we're like, ooh, this guy is scary. But ends up not being a very big deal. Okay. Fix this real quick too, guys. Just getting the next page up. All right, here we go. All right. So, Luffy, Zoro don't fight back against Bellamy like they promised Nami, and when they get tossed out of the bar, Blackbeard's just sitting there eating his like 100 cherry pies or whatever, and he doesn't do "Zay ha 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 ha." He does "ha ha ha ha." That's kind of weird. I actually have never noticed that before. Probably not super important, and more just because we don't know that this is Blackbeard. We're maybe still not supposed to know that this is an important character, or like super important character. Because this cherry pie really is the best. Why are you so upset, Missy? Your friends won that fight. Again, kind of showing us that he's on the same, I don't know. I guess I would say that this, to me, shows that he's on more of a, he's more in line with what a pirate is with Luffy and Shanks than some of the other pirates we see. And obviously Luffy and Shanks are a class above pretty much anybody else in this in the pirate story, in terms of like what the ideal pirate is, what somebody like Joy Boy would have represented. Blackbeard's in that same dimension or something, right? Blackbeard is definitely is smart. The fact that Oda chose to show him walking away from a situation he could have handled if he wanted to was a tough move. Yeah, definitely. And Blackbeard also shows right here that he recognizes that same kind of diligence and stuff, determination in Luffy. And I think here he's like, this Luffy is somebody that, you know, he himself can't underestimate. Oh yeah, he's definitely smart enough to pay attention to his surroundings on his old crew, especially in the part 2 of One Piece after the time skip. Blackbeard's using all his knowledge that he gained from his time on Whitebeard's crew to basically take over a lot of that same territory. And Luffy looks at Blackbeard and he thinks, based off of what Blackbeard just said to him, that they won that fight. He thinks of Shanks. And he even thinks of Ace. Your comeback was impressive too. You've got guts. That's Nami's comeback to the pirates, where she was like, we're not looking into it today, but she basically told them that they're not, that they're the weaklings, that they're not actually hardcore like they think they are. The new age they spoke of is rubbish. The age of pirate dreams is over. One, two, three, big teeth. His forearm is so skinny right here. Look how tiny that is. Luffy's just waiting here, seeing what's coming next. And then we get the famous panel. Let me get it pulled up, everybody. Okay. There we go. People's dreams don't ever end. One of the more famous moments of the series, I would say. This kind of space between them. I don't know what I think that suggests. But like taking everything out right here, right? Because they're in the middle of like a crowded street. Taking everything out of here and just leaving this blank space. And keeping them so far apart right here, right? They're not close. They could be drawn further apart. They could be drawn from a different perspective. But he takes out everybody else. Puts them pretty far apart. And to me, that signals two things. That signals that they're kind of far from each other from a perspective, but also connected deeply. Right. And in terms of what we saw with the cherry pies, and then what we know going forward, I think this is kind of signaling to us that they're going to be the main two rivals for the One Piece one day. Right. It'll be interesting if they really do end up being the two people that have like the big showdown, especially if Blackbeard ends up being the final boss of One Piece, even more so than Emu. Then is Oda going to draw a connection from this panel to another one at some point in their fight. Let's take a close look at Blackbeard here real quick. I don't think there's any noteworthy changes, right? People's dreams don't ever end. I think about this moment a lot because it connects me to what I like thinking about with Luffy's dream. Where Luffy's dream, we don't know it, but it's childish, it's insane, it should be impossible, and it's hilarious. Something that Roger and probably Joy Boy shared, and maybe some other people in between. But when Luffy shares his dream with the Straw Hats on, what is it, chapter like 1060? On their way to Egghead Island. Luffy says, he says his dream, we don't hear it, and then he says, that's what's at the end of my dream. But right here, on chapter 225, Blackbeard shares that his idea of dreams, and of course his idea of his own dream, is that it never ends. It's constantly reborn into a new era, into a new pirate, into a new generation, and maybe the pursuit of a dream is what's important in life, and not actually necessarily seeing that dream through to the end. That's just how I've kind of always seen this moment, and I think with everything we've seen here in this Jaya moment and how Oda sets the scene between these two characters, I think that whatever Blackbeard's dream is, it's got to be similar to Luffy's dream, but with an inversion, a twist. Do I think Emu or Blackbeard would ever team up with each other to defeat the other? I think that there's a chance that it kind of depends on how powerful Emu ends up being, right? I think there's a chance that all the pirates or all of the D members team up to beat Emu or Eames faction or whatever, right? So I think there is a chance of that. There's also like the kind of implication that the king of the pirates is somebody who can rule over or kind of command other pirates that aren't king. So whether they'd have to fight each other first to determine who gets to kind of ultimately be the leader, right? But I also can't really see, I guess like at the end of the day, I can't really see Luffy doing like a 2v1 type of fight. If there's only one other person that he's fighting, I think even at the cost of his own life, Luffy would want to have a 1v1 showdown, right? We saw that with his fight against Kaido, for example. I'd be curious how much Blackbeard knows about Nika, how much Blackbeard knows about Joy Boy. I would expect him to know more about Joy Boy than Nika, probably, if anything. But I also would not be surprised at all if he knows a lot about Nika. Alright, getting the next panel ready, guys. Next page. Here we go. Oh, I actually mixed this up earlier. Apparently I did get it. Nami called those pirates third-rate bullies. And we do get what Blackbeard says, actually. Let me get this over here for you guys. Accidentally went a little bit out of order here. This is the page before the Dreams Never End. The Sky Island does exist. Like Luffy, Blackbeard believes in things like that. Definitely just further drawing that they're two of the same. They're two peas of the same pod, but ultimately two different people, right? Okay. Blackbeard says, "Ain't that right?" Expecting Luffy to agree with him, saying like, "Hey, we see things. You and I, we're the same, right?" But Luffy doesn't say anything. Because they're not actually the same. There's also the question, like, imagine if Blackbeard knows about Joy Boy. Blackbeard knows about Nika, etc. Like we've seen in the series, there's been several characters that they just want to be Joy Boy. They just want to be... They like idolize this person and they want to become them. And so instead of like actually being them, actually representing those ideals, they're taking those ideals and morphing them into something a little bit different, right? Morphing them into something maybe more selfish in something like Blackbeard's case. And so there's the question is he really like Luffy, or is he kind of pretending or wanting to be like Luffy, but not really quite getting it? That's something I could definitely see. Hey, from this angle, it looks like Blackbeard has way more teeth than he had before, but I kind of think these are just like more of his back teeth, big wide ass smile. You can just see more. His eyes, I don't think have really changed, but keep an eye on that too. Blackbeard says, "It isn't easy to be great. It isn't easy to be great." We don't know necessarily what he means by that, but, you know, in terms of like how he thinks, he might be like, "Hey, I had to do some messed up stuff. I had to kill my friend, my family member, to get on this path of leading myself towards greatness," right? It can mean that you have to believe and search out things that should be impossible, a sky island. It can mean being great isn't easy because you can't fight people that are much weaker than you just because they're annoying and stupid. That you can show yourself to be great by holding back, right? Oh yeah, about the I have to disagree there about what being king of the pirates means. Yeah, and I agree with you that like uh when Roger became king of the pirates, it's not like he like commanded other pirates and stuff. But I mean, he did pretty much die right after, so there wasn't like really any true opportunity to do that. But if we came down to a moment in the world where the world government mobilizes the Navy, the God's Knights, Cypher Pool, Celestial Dragons, the Five Elders, Emu, etc., into maintaining power and to ultimately crushing the pirates and stuff. If somebody had found the One Piece and become the Pirate King, then the rest of the pirates in that situation could look at somebody like Luffy and say, like, you know, I'm not joining that guy's crew or anything, but I'm gonna fight next to him. I'm gonna fight for what he represents because he achieved something that I thought was impossible, or he achieved my dream. So I guess that's what I mean by if Blackbeard teams up with Luffy, it would be because he would see Luffy as a great enough pirate that he's willing to team up with him. That they're sharing like a common goal for just that moment, and it doesn't mean that he's gonna like bend the knee. So yeah, King of the Pirates is kind of like a weird term in terms of that, because being a pirate means, you know, you have your own crew, but besides that, you're not going to like have to be subjected to laws or rules or anything by another person, or let alone a government. Do I think he's seen the sky? Do I think he said the Sky Island is real because he believes it? Or do you think he's seen it himself? I don't really think he's seen it, but given Blackbeard's background and stuff that we know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's read about him, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much the most of it. I think so. I think he believes they exist based off what he's read and understand what he knows, which is probably something to do with he understands like a little bit of the true nature, or at least the possibilities that are possible within this world. Now, if he has been there before, it wouldn't be that shocking either, because he essentially grew up on Whitebeard's ship. So if Whitebeard went to any of the Sky Islands, then Blackbeard would have been there as well. But when he runs into Luffy again in Impel Down, he's like, hey, Sky Island was real, right? Right? So that's why I think it's implied that he's never been there before, but believes in it. Let them laugh. If you're aiming for the top, you don't always need to. You don't always need your fists to show your might. Pretty much doing a straight callback to the lesson that Luffy learned from Shanks when Luffy essentially decided to become a pirate captain. When Luffy decided to find the One Piece, to be a pirate as great as Shanks. Luffy's just staring at him, still not saying anything. And Zoro's like, let's go. Zoro starts walking away. Zoro starts walking away. Luffy's holding still. There's something about Blackbeard that bothers him, right? Maybe he's realizing this might be who his brother's looking for. But that's his brother's thing. It's not his business, so he's not even going to bother asking, right? One of the more interesting parts of this interaction comes up here. Blackbeard says, "Well, I won't keep you. You seem to be in a hurry. I hope you make it to the Sky Island." Hey, maybe that guy knows how to get to Skypiea. I wonder who he is. And then Luffy says, "Well, it's not just one guy." And Zoro says, "There's more than one. I think." Now this is probably like one of the more famous parts of the whole Blackbeard thing, right? That there is more than one person in that body. As we'll see it come up later when we see Blackbeard as a kid or a young pirate on Whitebeard's crew fighting the Roger pirates in Odin's flashback. It's revealed that Blackbeard doesn't sleep at night. Right? Blackbeard doesn't rest. Implying that there's something weird going on with his body. We also know from Vegapunk in early portion of Egghead Island that souls or memories and stuff, they have a physical, tangible weight in One Piece. For example, the memories and pain and stuff that Kuma can extract, that has a physical, measurable weight. And so all of this calls into question, is Blackbeard just one person? Is there another will inside of Blackbeard? And if there is another will inside of Blackbeard, that could make sense based off of what we know about devil fruits, that specifically Zoan devil fruits are known to have something called a will of their own, which is mentioned by the 5 elders around the type that Luffy's fruit awakens in the climax of the Wano arc. So if Zoan devil fruits hold a physical will inside of them, then does that will exist inside of the fruit user if they eat it? So what's going on here then with Blackbeard? Well, 2 possibilities as I see it. If he does have another Blackbeard inside of him or somebody else, right? That Logia devil fruit he ate, the dark fruit, it could also be, its true nature could also be different. Maybe it's not a Logia. We already know that it doesn't function like a normal Logia. Maybe it has a secret name as well, right? Maybe it's another mythological Zoan that's name has been covered up throughout history, buried and forgotten. And that is a will that exists within Blackbeard that they are sensing with observation hockey here, that they don't necessarily know how they're doing it. And we've seen some evidence that Luffy can use some observation hockey this early in the series on Little Garden when he beats Mr. 3. We've also seen later in the Impel Down arc that Blackbeard says his hockey grew since their last grew stronger since their last meeting, which was here, meaning that even though Luffy isn't purposely using hockey, he's still accessing that at least a little bit. Do you think that Zorro, somewhat knowing that there were more of them, was the beginning of observation hockey? Yes, I definitely think that. Yeah, so like the other reading of this, then some more than one person being in a body is like what people have read this as before is there's other like strong crewmates. That Blackbeard isn't somebody who's alone. That there's more than one pirate here. But they're just talking about this one guy, so I really don't see it that way personally. The other possibility of it, rather than being a devil fruit, is that Blackbeard or Marshall D. Teach, he comes from one of those special races that maybe we don't know enough about yet. And the special race, and the special property of that race is that they can consume more than one devil fruit, or they can like have multiple people sharing a body. Something weird like that, right? We've heard, we've had implications that Blackbeard has like a special bloodline or something many times, but most importantly, at the end of the Egghead Island arc, when we get some comments from Katarina Devon, what's the sniper guy's name? Can't remember right now, not super important, and their conversation briefly with Saturn. And we also get some implied stuff that they're not talking about people around him, because Nami's like, hey, was there somebody with him? Where? And they don't comment on any of that, right? Blackbeard just walks away saying, ha ha ha, this grog tastes awful good today. Which is interesting, right? Because he said during the bar scene, I need to draw this instead of trying to use my mouse. He said during the bar scene that it tastes awful. But here he says it tastes awful good today. So from that interaction with Luffy, Blackbeard, he liked it, right? I'd say that he likes Luffy. Get the next. Forget the OP. I want to know why he takes the bandana off. That's interesting. Wait, where does he take the bandana off? I'm confused. Are you talking about him drinking right here? It might just be the back of his hair sticking out. But it might just, you might be talking about like future Blackbeard too. Okay. I'm just grabbing our pages for that we're going to be doing here in a second. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Why did this one not open? All right. Oh, he never takes off the bandana. Yeah, that's interesting. That'd be crazy if he's hiding some crazy shit under there. Honestly, pretty interesting idea. Pretty interesting idea indeed. He has afro power? That'd be dope. That's funny. I like that. All right. Here we go. Whitebeard and Shanks are meeting. This is leading up to... This is leading up to Thriller Bark and stuff. This is getting... Shanks is here to tell Blackbeard, like, call Ace back, because Blackbeard is dangerous. You're kind of falling into Blackbeard's plans, and if we're not careful, this could get really out of control. I don't need anything about Buggy and Shanks. They're talking about their scars and their battle wounds, right? I don't think it comes up on this page, but Blackbeard tells Shanks when I'm around you, my scars ache from the scars I got from him, you know. At first implying that it would be Roger when we first saw this, but nowadays I think we are pretty aware that we're talking about probably Garling, who's now the fifth elder, and who was the supreme commander of the Gods Knights right before that, and was the hero or champion of God's Valley at one point. Yeah, probably Garling. I definitely agree. What's up, Cheese Wheel? Thanks for coming by. We're just going over every panel that Blackbeard's in through the series and seeing what we can learn and stuff. You know, it's going to be a little bit of a slow going and a slow burn, but we're coming up to parts where he shows up a lot, and we're going to get him using his devil fruit here pretty soon. But Shanks says, you know, I've received a lot of scars, I've fought Mihawk and all this kind of stuff, but the only one that aches right now is a scar I got from Blackbeard. And that explains... You heard him. What a weird scar, by the way. Like, did he scratch him? Did he use, like, little Wolverine gauntlets or something back in the day when he was pretending to be weak? And right here... Shanks says, it wasn't because I was careless. This guy is dangerous. He laid low and waited for his chance. He didn't even rise up to become a squad leader or make a name for himself. He hid himself behind the giant shadow of Whitebeard. Do I think Blackbeard will show up on Elbaf? It's a good question. Probably not. I think Blackbeard is much more likely to use the information that he's getting from Caribou right now and the information from Vegapunk's announcement to, well, number one, he knows ancient weapons are real, and he knows where all three of them are, right? Because Vegapunk says the world government has Uranus. Caribou tells him that the princess mermaid on Fishman Island, Shirahoshi, is Poseidon and can control the Neptunians. And Caribou also knows that Pluton is basically held up by the walls around Wano. And Blackbeard, with his Tremor fruit, is kind of well positioned to forcibly bring down the walls of Wano and forcibly remove Pluton. So I think he's more likely to do something like kidnap Shirahoshi or go break down Wano and open it up. Something like that, I think, is quite a bit more likely. But I mean, if he shows up on Elbaf, I'd be like, all right, that makes sense too. I think there is like a possibility, but I think it's still not quite the time. I think if he shows up on Elbaf, it's going to be, I think Shanks is going to be there too. So basically, it would turn out that Elbaf would be a much longer arc, and that Elbaf would have basically like a full-scale war breaking out on it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with it. What do you think? Do you think he's going to show up on Elbaf? Oh, that's cool about the Wolverine claws. He really did use them. It's so funny. It's such a weird weapon, but I do love it. Man, he must infuse those things with some crazy hockey. And it's definitely like a question, like, how does he have so much power, right? If he's not training and stuff. And so this kind of goes with the idea we were talking about earlier on Jaya, is that there's something lurking inside him, something with a much stronger will that could be affecting him. Blackbeard only kind of recently has his devil fruit, right? We know that Blackbeard murdered Thatch to get the dark fruit and basically took off. And one of the early places he ran into after recruiting a couple crew members was the Drum Kingdom, where he destroyed the Drum Kingdom and effectively liberated it from Wapple's control. So there's not that much time that he's had that Logia fruit, right? So, but this Shanks has had the scar for a long time, right? When we see Luffy's childhood, even in Chapter 1, Shanks has the scar. So that means that Blackbeard would have some type of power lurking inside him from childhood. I think Shanks. I thought Shanks already left Elbaf though. Like, wouldn't he be far enough away that he probably wouldn't turn back? Yeah, I don't really think he'd turn back. I don't think it's likely, but I think if Shanks finds out that Blackbeard is going to Elbaf, that Shanks would go to Elbaf immediately. And Shanks somehow shows that he can kind of get around the world very quickly, right? So I think if Blackbeard goes to Elbaf, Shanks would probably show up as well. I don't really think that's going to happen. I think it's more likely that Shanks... I could see Shanks waiting somewhere for Luffy, or trying to predict where Blackbeard's going to go next. But at the moment, he's on Hachinosu, which is also not super close to Elbaf, just for the record. So I don't think the Straw Hats will linger on Elbaf for too long. Meaning, I just don't think Blackbeard can get there in time while the Straw Hats are there. But he is pretty close to Wano. I'm so curious about how he wounded Shanks, and it was before Shanks trained his hockey to such a high level. I don't necessarily think it is before he trained. I think Shanks was probably fairly strong, even at a pretty young age. But, and I don't think it has anything to do with Shanks being weak or anything like that, because he says right here. Let me move this a little bit. He says right here. It's not because I was careless, you know, and he's bringing this into the context of like, hey, like I fought Mihawk, I fought all these other crazy battles, none of them left a scar like this on me. Implying that he was like on that same level as when he fought Mihawk, which Whitebeard calls like a legendary duel or whatever, right? And I could definitely see Shanks as like a young emperor or somebody who was becoming a young emperor as running into the Whitebeard pirates occasionally, right? So it could have been from that time. We know that the scar wasn't during Roger's lifetime. So it was sometime when Shanks was going out on his own, right? Because Shanks didn't have the scar when he was a kid. That's how I see it, at least. Yeah, he must have done it in a way that, like, at least Whitebeard and stuff didn't really think too much about it. But I think kind of the way that they're talking about their scars is that, like, if you have a scar, like if that attack had like a lot of hockey in it, that the scar, like the pain from that doesn't really completely go away, right? So the implication here, I guess, would be he's got some like messed up hockey that nobody is aware of and that he's just been hiding. Shanks says, and once he had enough power, he finally made his move. A man like that will never be satisfied. He'll keep aiming for the top, which we've heard many times from Blackbeard already, that he's aiming for the top. And let's see here. Shanks goes, I want you to stop Ace. I know Ace is strong, but his fame and trust are what's complicating this issue. But his fame and trust are what's complicating this issue. Trust. That's an interesting choice of words, I think. It's a really interesting use of words. I don't know if Shanks would get that involved if Luffy is there. He handled everything in Wano from afar. For what seems that reason, he seems to be trying his best not to sway Luffy's journey. Yeah, I agree with that part. That Shanks is not trying to affect Luffy's journey at all. He's just kind of like set it in motion, letting it happen. So I guess you're right. If he knows Luffy's there, which I guess he doesn't really know probably at the moment. But if he finds out if Blackbeard is there, he definitely could find out that Luffy is there. And I agree that I think if he knew Luffy was there, he would be like, well, Luffy can handle it. Sounds good. I guess I don't quite know. It's kind of hard to know how Shanks feels about Luffy's development in terms of like power and all that compared to himself. Like, does he think Luffy is ready to beat Blackbeard? I don't know. It's a good question, though. Yeah, I definitely think it has something to do with Blackbeard and him not sleeping somehow. I mean, I'm personally more of the mind that there's like 1 to 2 other people or like souls or whatever that exist within Blackbeard, and that him not sleeping is because, you know, they're kind of like switching. They're like switching pilots for the body, essentially. Like a different personality. Like he's still sleeping, but somebody else is awakening, right? When the main Marshall D. Teach is sleeping. His fame and trust is what's complicating the issue. Now is not the time to pit those two against each other. I think Shanks is aware here that Ace, being Roger's son, could be used to sow chaos in the world, right? Whether Blackbeard knows that or not. That Blackbeard and Ace running into each other could have massive consequences on the world, which of course is what happens. And I think that kind of fits how I see Shanks' character overall, where he's kind of a mediator, right? He's somebody that's trying to keep balance in the world. Luffy said on Drum Island that someone on Shanks' crew told him that people who live in cold places don't sleep, because if they do, they die. So it may be more true than we assume. That'd be interesting, yeah. That'd be interesting. I should go back and look into that sometime. Nope, just a duplicate. Don't go after Blackbeard Teach. That's my only request. But Whitebeard says no. He committed the unforgivable crime on a pirate ship. Whitebeard shares that letting a pirate on his crew, they become a son to him. And he says, the souls of my dead sons, my crew, call out for vengeance. It's my responsibility to show that fool Teach that you can't live in this world without a code of conduct. Kind of a scary moment here from this badass. They drink their grog. They're kind of pissed off at each other for trying to tell each other what to do. And they cross swords and split the heavens, right? And Shanks says, no one will be able to stop this era from spiraling into chaos. Alright, here we go. The showdown with Blackbeard and Ace. On a certain island. Now Blackbeard's laughing, "Zay ha ha ha. Look at what they did. They took down the judicial island. They're wanting to go pick up Luffy right now, right? They're exhausted on Water 7. Blackbeard's wanting to become one of the 7 warlords. So he's like, this is a good time to go give the world government give the world government a gift, and in reward, I'll be given access to the privileges of being a warlord, namely being able to access Impel Down and Marineford. It's tough to know that if Blackbeard was really planning on causing like a full-scale war, or if he was just an opportunist. Clearly, I think he was planning on always getting Whitebeard's fruit for himself, which means he planned to kill Whitebeard. But I do think, like, he's planning on getting Luffy here, right? And that wouldn't cause a war between the world government and the Whitebeard pirates. But I think after he captured Ace and what it's led to, he saw it as an opportunity. He's like, oh my gosh, my plans, it's going to happen sooner than I thought. Oh, so where they say that on Drum Island is when they're heading to the castle. Okay, I'll look into that. Is that guy on this island? That's funny. They're getting ready to go. We see Blackbeard and his full crew. He's dressed a lot differently now. Got a bunch of he's got a bunch of jewelry now. Got a bunch of jewelry now. You got this coat, everything. Same pants, same shoes. Not much change. I would say that it looks like he's been making some money. I think Blackbeard's somebody that's very much like money is power, right? And then Ace is like, what's up? I've been looking for you. Finally got you. If you're wondering where this at, if you don't remember, we're post Ennie's lobby right now. That certain island is Bonero Island on the Grand Line. Well, what do you know? It's Commander Ace. You know, Blackbeard does look like he has a few more teeth than when we saw him in Jaya. He definitely has at least one other tooth, showing or not. I feel like this one right here is an extra one. Alright. Stop it. Don't call me that anymore. Those words should only be used by people who say them with respect. Head of the Blackbeard Pirates, Captain Marshall D. Teach. So yeah, I think this is the first time that we see the Zehaha. It's been so long, Ace. How much do we know about the lore of Blackbeard's crew? Like, the plague guy says he was a sickly kid that never got better, or do we know anything about the rest of them? The backstories could tell us a lot about the type of person he attracts. Yeah, I don't think we know diddly squat about his original crew members, right? Don't even know how they know each other. And I would say that this like core group, you know, they seem to be the ones that really kind of believe in Blackbeard the most. The people he recruits after Impel Down, like Avalo Pizarro and stuff like that, I don't think they have quite as much faith in Blackbeard, but their goals align more or less. Trying to think what else we know. I mean, I feel like we really only know about some of the Impel Down crew members, but still don't know a lot about them as well, which makes it tough. Oda has really gone some lengths of holding back a lot of information about Blackbeard. Stuff that we probably won't really get too much into until like we're really approaching the climax of whatever Blackbeard is going after, right? And we see here that, you know, he wants Ace, he asks Ace, do you want to join me? I'm going to become king of the pirates. And he threatens Ace by saying, I'm going to go kill Straw Hat Luffy. And at this moment, Blackbeard doesn't know that that's Ace's little brother. Ace tells him that's another reason not to let you run loose. He needs to stop Blackbeard here, not only because of what he did to a fellow crew member, Thatch, but also what he could do to Luffy. And I would say the other crew members on Blackbeard's crew, you know, we don't have any bounty information about him. We don't have any clues to like how they got so strong in the first place. Really is truly unknown. I could see things like they knew Teach as like a child and they kind of made a promise to like meet up again one day. But truly don't know. I could also see as soon as Blackbeard left the Whitebeard Pirates that because he's seen so much of the world, he went to some specific places to either recruit people he met or just to find strong people and make connections. And these are some of the people he found between leaving Whitebeard's crew and kind of pillaging the Drum Kingdom. All right. Blackbeard says, Van Auger, Burgess, I did not tell you to attack him. You guys aren't to his level yet. You know, pretty accurate, pretty accurate. But Blackbeard means I'll fight him. We see that Blackbeard feels Ace's attack. It does hurt him. He says, I know my crime was a serious crime among pirates. Yes, I killed Thatch, the number 4 division leader, with my own hands. But he also says, I didn't have a chance. I didn't have a choice. He got the devil fruit I was searching for. All that time on Whitebeard's crew, he was looking for that devil fruit. According to the Whitebeard's rules, the one who finds the devil fruit has the right to eat it. I memorized all the shapes of the devil fruits in the identification manual, showing us immediately that Blackbeard is he's a well-read guy in terms of his plans, right? He's not making choices without a certain level of calculation. So I instantly realized that was the fruit I had searched for all my life. I stayed on Whitebeard's ship for decades because I knew that was my best chance of finding that devil fruit. If my bad luck had continued, I would have just given up someday. But my friend got that fruit before me. So then he says, I didn't have a choice, right? Maybe implying that he knows something about the true nature of fruits. Because he says, this power, or that fruit, chose me. That was just bad luck. So he's saying, I didn't have a choice because the devil fruit made me do it. Which is an interesting defense, but also makes sense from what we've learned about devil fruits, right? We don't really know as much about Logia fruits specifically because, and the reason we don't know as much is because Vegapunk is not able to replicate Logia fruits specifically. He can replicate the effects of a Paramecia type through bloodline elements. He can create Zoan fruits relatively easily. But he doesn't know if those Zoan fruits can awaken as well, maybe implying that the will inside of a Zoan fruit is something that you can't manufacture. But he also said with all of the money and energy and time, he still can't recreate a Logia devil fruit. Vegapunk says that devil fruits come into existence because somebody wished them into existence. At some point, somebody wished to have that power or that ability, and then somebody else down the line will get to eat the fruit and exists in that other dimension that was dreamed up by somebody else. So I guess part of when I see a fruit like this that Blackbeard has, where he becomes darkness, right? Essentially becomes a black hole. Why would somebody wish for that? Why would somebody want that? Why does Blackbeard want that, right? Is there secret ability that it has. Maybe something to do with being able to take devil fruit abilities, but I could definitely see it being something else entirely. Yeah, he does say that he feels, even though it's a Logia, I think he's going to say that here in a second, even though it's a Logia, it doesn't function the same as a Logia, where he still feels all the pain. In fact, it's amplified. But that amplification comes because he's essentially absorbing it, and to me it kind of ends up looking like he can expel it or something, right? Thumbelina, that's funny. Behold, a rarity even among Logia fruits. The weird properties of this fruit definitely make me wonder, is this truly a Logia? Or is it another one of those mythological zoans, which are known for kind of acting like Logias? Something that's had its name buried. And maybe Blackbeard doesn't even know that it has a fake name. Ace, your body's made of fire, right? You may be fire, but I'm made of darkness. And this kind of brings up another interesting inversion between Blackbeard and Luffy. Luffy is made of the sun, right? He's made of light in a way, right? And Blackbeard's the inversion of that. He's a black hole. He's a darkness. He's empty. He takes everything, whereas Luffy's abilities can make things, can kind of do anything. Everything that exists in the world that's alive essentially comes from what the sun is made up of. Whereas darkness can destroy and take in everything. With some of the newest information we have about Nika, we've learned that Nika has destroyed the world twice before, where Nika has been considered a god of joy and laughter, a god of liberation, and a god of destruction. And I'm not saying that Blackbeard is a sun god, but clearly he represents more of a destruction type of archetype, right? So maybe it wasn't exactly Nika or a sun god that did the destruction before. But then we also have in Elbaf right now, we got Loki, who claims to be a sun god and that he wants to destroy the world. So there's these very interesting parallels between all these characters and how they might interact or intersect or differ from Joy Boy from Nika. Yeah, and it'd be interesting too, like, I mean, there's a possibility, I mean, Blackbeard says here, like, I've read about all the devil fruits in the book, you know, like this, and I chose this one as the one that I'm looking for. But, for example, the Nika fruit, the Gum Gum fruit never existed in that book, according to Vegapunk. And the human fruit model Nika certainly did not exist in that book. But was still given a fake name. So maybe this is a fruit that exists in the book but with a fake name. Who knows? It kind of depends on who was the last user, right? If Roxy Zebek or something used this fruit, and you can't really hide its existence in the same way that they hid the existence of the Nika fruit. But it's like, what if it's had a fake name for a long time? And it's not like Luffy didn't know the true name of his devil fruit, still doesn't know the true name of his devil fruit. And basically nobody did except the 5 elders and Vegapunk, more or less. You can't kill me. It's said to be the most dangerous power in the history of all devil fruit powers. The Logia type dark fruit. I've become a darkness man. I don't know why. I've become a darkness man. Just kind of a funny line. And wow, does Blackbeard look serious here. And kind of crazy. I'll show you my powers right now. So they all just take off running because they know Blackbeard's about to start fighting. That's pretty interesting. He's shown off his powers a little bit for him, at least. That's why I look to the Mayan mythology for inspiration when trying to figure out what Oda might do with these characters. There's multiple sun gods and jaguars and giants. Blackbeard is like one of the sun gods too. Yeah, and that's a really good point because One Piece is made up of a lot of different races and cultures and all that kind of stuff, right? And but the sun belongs to everybody, and so being separated and isolated, different places are going to come up with their own myths or beliefs, and so then you can get multiple sun gods that, you know, aren't Nika or are Nika, depending on where like if somebody came from one island and left and went on an adventure and ended up on another island, they could bring that myth or idea of Nika with them, right? But if they were like all separated, they could still come up with a totally different sun god that's not Nika. Or maybe they don't know Nika's name, and so they're really talking about the same sun god, but they would give the sun god a different name. And then if you believed in something like a sun god, depending where you're at, you know, you might dream up or imagine or hope for that sun god to exist with a totally different representation. Instead of being laughter, you could be like, I want the sun god to come and destroy the people that are oppressing us. I want the sun god to free us, whatever, you know. Them running also shows that Blackbeard is not able to like fully control this power, and also maybe just doesn't know how to restrain himself. I like that. That's a good observation. Okay. This is an interesting part about Blackbeard's fruit. You know, he's not missing a tooth on this side anymore. Let me take a look back at this. No, he's not missing it there either. That's something to keep it interesting, though, because it's been consistent across these couple pages. Missing a tooth right there, one kind of in the middle on my right side. Has one tooth and another one. I gotta try to keep an eye out for that. It's like such a weird thing, but I mean, it doesn't have no merit, you know what I mean? His darkness is just spreading everywhere. This would be a scary devil fruit if Logius can be awakened. Would be scary. How long after Blackbeard ran into Luffy does this happen? Well, in terms of chapters, it's about 200 chapters and some change. In terms of time in One Piece, they go up to the Sky Island for not very long at all. They are not on Skypiea for long at all. Then they go back down, and then they get to Long Ring Long Land, probably a few days sailing at least. And I don't think they're on Long Ring Long Land overnight or anything. They make a quick, no more than one journey over to Water 7. And then I think they're on Water 7 for a few days before they go to Enies Lobby, at least, right? So, like, we could say anywhere between, like, I think it's got to be between, like, 3 and 5 days. Enies Lobby happens really quick. And then they recover on Water 7 for about a week, and that's during this time. So, I'd say it's been a couple weeks, about, since they've met. Not very long at all. And I think that kind of is in line with, like, Blackbeard hasn't traveled very far either, because he probably still needs to get to an island, let the log pose reset, and then go to another island. And log poses resetting can take a few hours to a week, 2 weeks, a month. So, and obviously he could have gone to other places too in the meantime, but yeah, that's where we're at. Oh man, Blackbeard. He says darkness is gravity. Right, that's like a black hole. So he's sucking everything in. That's why he still feels the pain. A darkness so dense it sucks in everything, even light. Kind of showing that this can be a counter to somebody like Luffy. Right? The sun is light, right? And maybe it's considered, and there's also a chance that it could be considered the strongest devil fruit for specifically for, like, that it counters other devil fruit users, as we will see here briefly. And the gravity part of this fruit is definitely the part that I think is the most dangerous. Out in my car. Shamrock leaf, that's funny. Alright, the town is crumbling. It's all being pulled towards the black hole that Blackbeard is making. My gravity compresses objects with infinite power and crushes them. Now, like, an interesting part of black holes and about gravity is gravity also affects time. Who knows how much that will come into place in the future. But as you approach, like, the strong, like, the more gravity there is, the perception of time is going to decrease. As in, time is going to feel very slow, but the time around you is going to keep. You're going to feel like if you're close to the black hole, the amount of time that you're down there isn't going to feel like a lot of time, but then when you get away from the gravity, it's going to, like, more time is going to have passed. That's like that whole thing in Interstellar, if you've seen the movie. Christopher Nolan directs it and stuff. It's a pretty good movie. But they get down on like a planet with a lot of gravity there, and it's like every hour that they're there, like 10 years passes on Earth, essentially. So there could be some messed up time stuff coming into Blackbeard's powers one day, especially since, you know, Oda does his research. So then Blackbeard shows what happened to that town after he just absorbed the whole thing. What's left of it. And he like shoots it all out in a big, almost like an explosion, I guess is what I would say. But it's mainly just a demonstration that he can absorb things. This to me kind of shows that this is the devil fruit that he... Like, I would think that this is the devil fruit that he uses to remove devil fruit powers from people. I would think that it's this fruit that could specifically do that. Based off of this, right? He can suck it in and then expel it, maybe into his other crew members, giving them that devil fruit. Zehaha. Do you understand? This is my power. We don't understand, but we kind of understand. But we're going to need to see more, buddy. The interesting part about all of this, though, to me, on this page in particular, is the name of this ability. Whether he names it himself or it's something like inherent to the devil fruit that he just learns, like what the abilities are called somehow. Doesn't really matter too much. But this power is called Liberation. That through destruction, something is being liberated. It's an interesting idea. And I think it draws more of a parallel with Luffy, with Nika, and all that kind of stuff, and Joy Boy, right? And we know Marshall D. Teach is somebody with a D, and while they're not who Roger was waiting for, and probably not who Joy Boy was waiting for, I think Blackbeard is somebody who shares some of those same ideals to a degree. Yeah, doing some gardening. My wife and I, and our channel, it's called the Garden Club, where we do like a little silly podcast together, and we do like a bunch of streams and stuff together. I think he's literally like I think he's a literal black hole, similar to the guy with the clay body and whatever. Yeah. Able to kind of make like an inventory. Yeah. Is Blackbeard the true parallel destroyer version of Nika to Luffy's Liberator? Or I mean, Luffy's fruit might not even be like the Nika Liberator version. It could just be the Laughter version, which has like a side effect of liberating people as well. It's definitely a question I've been thinking of, given what we're learning in these newest chapters. And it's also tough to know that if is Blackbeard actually like the destroyer version of Nika to Luffy's version of Nika, Or is he just trying to become that version? Kind of like how Kaido, for example, is trying to become Joy Boy, but not actually matching those ideals. Is Blackbeard another one of those guys? I think he seems to be cut from a little bit of a different cloth. Ace says, I can tell your darkness thing is pretty amazing, but that's odd. If your powers are Logia type, an attack like that shouldn't hurt you. I'm going to get Blackbeard's little explanation here of how his differences. I told you darkness sucks in everything, whether it's punches, blades, bullets, fire, or lightning. Unlike you, I can't just turn into fire and avoid these attacks. My body absorbs all pain, and all that pain is amplified in the process. But in exchange for that, there's another thing I can absorb. And this is probably his most devastating ability, Black Vortex. The gravity of darkness can pull in the actual body of Devil Fruit users, including Logia users, obviously, since Ace is a Logia user. Yeah, Cheese Wheel. We went over when we first met Blackbeard and the Jaya arc on the stream, how he's somebody who's really well read. He knows a lot about devil fruits. He knows a lot about the history of piracy. He knows a lot about the world generally too. Yeah. Black Vortex, which to me just sounds like black hole. And the gravity of darkness can pull in the actual body of devil fruit users, showing his dark fruit to be basically a true counter to Logias and just devil fruit users generally, which kind of might mean that Shanks is kind of a counter to Blackbeard. We'll see. And I would assume that Blackbeard has some is aware, obviously, that Shanks sees him as a massive threat and has been basically avoiding Shanks. But I wouldn't imagine Blackbeard going into a confrontation with Shanks without a plan, because if we've seen anything about Blackbeard, that he is a planner. He is not cut from he is not similar to Luffy in that way at all. And Blackbeard says, and as for my body, well, you probably noticed it by now, Ace. And what I think he's implying here is, if I'm touching you, this darkness ability, what it does to my body is it makes you, it shuts off your devil fruit abilities. It essentially acts like almost like a sea prism stone or something. And he waxes Ace pretty good indeed. Been a while since you've taken a real punch, hasn't it? You must have felt it the moment I grabbed you. And of course, like, we know hockey, not at this point, but we now know that hockey users, armament hockey users, can still hit Logia users. But, that only matters to the level as strong as somebody's hockey is. If they're just a standard armament hockey user and they punch a Logia user, I don't think it's going to do that much. Whereas if they have much stronger armament or Color of the Supreme King hockey infused into their attacks, they're going to feel that a lot more. But the counter for a Logia person is, with observation hockey, you can kind of see where they're going to attack and you can manipulate your elemental body to dodge the attack completely. That's kind of like the most basic counter to that. If depression was a devil fruit, that's funny. The other thing my darkness can absorb is the power of devil fruits. And I'm definitely assuming that is how he is able to steal fruits from other people. A devil fruit power. In other words, while I'm touching their bodies, a devil fruit user loses their powers. Dun dun dun. Logia, Zoan, Paramethea all think they're invulnerable, and I have the power to turn them back into ordinary, weak human beings. And Ace is like, well, I just gotta like, not let you touch me, right? But Blackbeard has kind of already explained that this power, this gravity of darkness, it's infinite. So regardless of how much you try to avoid being touched, he can make it very difficult to actually get away from it. Ace pulls a couple quick moves to get another hit or two in. Getting some nice attacks in. Blackbeard is a little bit worried, I would say, actually, but maybe doesn't need to be. Close some of these. This. Alright. Let's open the next ones. Okay. Let's see here. 30. Okay, here we go. Okay, fight continues. It is pretty close, and even though Blackbeard kind of claims to be unbeatable, not really true. Not really true. We just know that by him obviously not fighting Whitebeard right away, and stuff. But he is very powerful. We get a little tiny monologue from Van Augur, who has always been kind of an insightful person on Blackbeard's crew. And he says, these devil fruit users are always so dependent on their special abilities. I had thought they would be especially fragile when their weapons were taken from them, but I suppose being a division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates shows that he's an excellent fighter even without his powers. It seems that today is another crossroads of fate, kind of referencing that checkered fate that is known to be a concept within the the world of One Piece. It goes across generations, right? Okay. Has to be. It has to be one of the worst feelings to suddenly lose your powers like that, especially for a Logia. Yeah, that's true because it does like become part of you. That's a really cool point. I want to know exactly what he did to Whitebeard under that cloak. Same. Why the show of hiding it? Did he not want people to see his powers, or did he do something secret? The real life Blackbeard died after being stabbed more than 20 times and shot 5 times, so he better build up that tolerance. I'm ready and waiting for the Blackbeard flashback saga. Yeah, that's gonna all be awesome. So my theory, I'm just gonna go. This is my personal theory of not a ton of evidence, but the sick guy on his crew. He's always carrying around a basket of apples. My theory is that if you have a fruit or something close enough to a fruit user when they die, maybe Blackbeard has to like absorb the fruit power and then like put it into a fruit, eat the fruit, gets the power. That's kind of like my theory, right? Because when there's a devil fruit is born, like, does a fruit just come out of nowhere, or does it like or is it like absorbed into a fruit that is already like existing and then becomes a devil fruit and it changes its appearance and all that? If that guy is carrying around apples because he knows how Blackbeard can steal powers, then that kind of fits. That's my personal theory. And I think he was probably trying to keep it a secret so that it's knowledge is power, right? To a certain extent. And his uniqueness with how he has multiple devil fruits and how he's able to take fruits from other people and then give them to other people is something that is really unknown in the world of One Piece and makes him much more dangerous because people don't know fully what he's capable of. It changes it on an existing fruit. It doesn't seem to be reliant on locality. I don't think devil fruits transfer to the closest fruit because there is fruit everywhere. Yeah, I don't necessarily think it goes to the closest fruit, but what I'm saying is that Blackbeard can use his dark fruit to absorb the fruit power, even just briefly, and then transfer it to a fruit. And then he's got that fruit in that fruit. That's, again, not a ton of evidence for it, but we did just see how Blackbeard's devil fruit works when he absorbed the town and then released the town. So to me, that's like a legit possibility. There's definitely probably even stronger possibility that something entirely different is going on now. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that there's a chance that the Doc guy carries around the fruit for that purpose, ultimately. Oh, he showed that it goes into the nearest. It showed that it goes into the nearest fruit that looks like it when the blob monster dies. Are you talking about on Punk Hazard? It shows a normal apple to a blue swirly one. I can totally believe that he can do that. Yeah, it makes sense by his power. He can stop them when touching turning off their abilities so he can manipulate it out if they're dying, recently dead. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it at the moment. I'm betting he could put a devil fruit in his inventory and gain the power, but by that logic, his pocket fruit guy could probably do the same thing. That's funny. Okay, let's get over to this other page real quick. Oh, Blackbeard's getting a little bit winded here. Not even a man like you stands a chance, but it'd be a great loss if you died. Come on, Ace, join me. Ace can't back down, though, because he ultimately also needs to protect Luffy, and Ace is somebody that would never run away. If I bow down to power, what's the point in living? I'll never live my life with regrets. Do you understand that, moron? Ace is a badass. I love that guy. Every time I go back and reread anything with Ace in it, I'm like, I love Ace. Love Ace. When I first read One Piece, I didn't really feel quite as strongly, but the more I see and read Ace, the more I feel like I understand him a little bit better, and the more I just like appreciate his character. At one end, he's, probably one of the greatest tragedies in One Piece, but he's also one of the greatest success stories of One Piece. Somebody who is hated for just being born at all, but ultimately truly enjoys his life, truly makes bonds and connections that save him. So, love this character. Once you're dead, nothing else matters. That's what Blackbeard says. Wow. Once you're dead, nothing else matters. That is kind of a crazy line coming from a D member. Because, I don't know about you guys, but I personally don't see that as being true at all in One Piece. Like, we learned from Hiraluk of like what dying, like what even makes you dead. It's like when you're forgotten. I mean, I guess if you're forgotten, nothing else matters. But just like your physical body dying. But then we also see, like in the latest parts of the One Piece manga, where Vegapunk dies, that like what even is death, right? His body's dead, but he keeps living. Kuma dies, yet something keeps driving him. So, for somebody that knows a lot about the world, Blackbeard to me is showing me right here that he has a bit of a narrow perspective on things as well. That he's maybe pigeonholed himself. And I'd be curious to see if he's learned anything over the last 2 years about this type of stuff. I don't know. I don't really have the feeling that his character has really changed that much over the course of the story. That Blackbeard has been, as soon as he eats this dark fruit, that he's been pretty much the same guy. See Ace's big attack, Flame Emperor, where he just makes a sun. Pretty fucking badass. The sun or darkness, only one of us will win. And boy, if that kind of like... that's just such a breadcrumb of what's going to happen in the future when somebody between Luffy and Blackbeard will ultimately be the one to shape the next era. The narrator shows Ace's fallen hat, implying that he lost, and saying the duel at Bonaro Island and the Grand Line. This battle between pirates would later be identified as the trigger for the major events that were to follow. Boy. Tough time. Tough time. Ace is one of those characters that grows on you the more you find out about him. Luffy said, once your bones, that's it. Yo ho ho. Yep, Binks Brew. Binks Brew. Indeed. While devil fruits make people giant, but some powers have natural equals, such as actual giants. The flying fruit is pointless for Lunarians. Oh, yeah, I like that. Spirits exist, as in Brook and Kuma. Yeah, I'd be curious what Blackbeard knows about souls, spirits, and all that kind of stuff. Here they're talking about a successor for Crocodile after he got his ass whooped by Luffy. And they came up with a successor, Mr. Marshall D. Teach, also known as Blackbeard. Somebody like Gecko Moria has never even heard of him. His bounty was 0. Moria says, but they should be happy they got someone to fill in the spot. Now the balance of power will be restored or something, right? These guys don't believe in that. Kuma says, I'm imagining the exact opposite, but never mind that for now. Because I think Kuma is already sensing big shakeup in the world emerging. In fact, we know he already knows who Luffy is. Already very interested in him. Kuma asks Gecko Moria, do you understand what the government is worried about? The government is concerned that another one of the 7 warlords will be taken out by Straw Hat. He's talking about you, Moria. Talking about you. And then we start getting into the Paramount War, where Blackbeard makes his move. They can't find him because he's using his access as a warlord to get through the gates of justice and to get into Impel Down. Interesting times. I think this is where we're going to stop off for now. And then next stream, we'll knock out the rest. Knock out the rest. I'll schedule that at least 12 hours ahead of time. I don't know if I'm going to do it next Sunday or if I'll do it sometime during the week, but please check it out if you enjoyed it. Please give the stream a like if you don't mind. That's like the easiest way to actually help me, because it basically presents the videos to more people in the future, and then they can check out what we're doing here. And I appreciate anybody who stopped by, anybody who's watching after the fact. Um, yeah, My 3-year-old son just started watching One Piece stuff. We're at the Syrup, just started Syrup Village, and so I'm gonna leave here, go out to the rest of my house, hang out with him, and he'll probably gum pistol me over and over again because that's been his big thing. That he'll just being silly and wild and punching me and pretending to be Luffy and like I'm like, oh, that's a little naughty, but I can't, I love it. It's like the cutest thing ever for me. I'll read the chat and stuff a little bit real quick too. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys. I appreciate you all. Hope you guys have a good week. All right.